Can you tell me?
Yes, they 100% are leaving. You have last year into this year, at least 160 businesses in downtown Seattle alone that have decided to close up shop permanently. Some of them are leaving.
Facing hundreds of affordable housing professionals and advocates, Mayor Bruce Harrell put a price tag on plans to build affordable housing over the next 7 years if voters approve the pitch.
For a so-called millionaire's tax today for what he described as the wealthiest people living in our state.
Those who make the least amount of money pay much larger shares of their income than those with the most resources. Specifically, Washington families whose income is in the
2029. That still leaves the next 2-year budget cycle, though, more than $2 billion short for everything that the governor has planned. Top Democrat budget leaders said many Washingtonians have shown an appetite to tax the wealthy, calling the state's tax structure regressive. Critics on the other side of the aisle, though, believe it could pave the way for an income tax on the whole state.
A big focus is.
So, look, we understand $70,000 isn't going to solve a budget shortfall, but it's still $70,000, and it sends a message, which I think is really important.
There's still 2 months left in the legislative session, and Governor Ferguson says it's too early to know if new taxes will have to be part of the final budget agreement. We spoke with the House Majority Leader, Representative Joe Fitzgibbon, today. He's a Democrat. He also said that taxes need to be the last resort, but he's been a little more vocal.
So, as you might imagine, the $9 billion that you're cutting is a lot more challenging to cut than the $1 billion that you're cutting in a budget like this.
Some taxes the governor ruled out were increases to sales and property taxes.
It's not like we're at a point where I can say, hey, we have now closed this multi-billion-dollar shortfall and now we're just finalizing the budget. That's not where we're at. We're still very much in the difficult decision mode. I've got multiple, if you look at my schedule, I'm sure it shows multiple budget meetings every single day.
Seattle's housing market is officially the worst in the nation based upon the metric year-over-year decline. Month of March. Spring 2026. Worst. Who would have seen that one coming? Let's see. We got tech firings like there's no tomorrow. We got a socialist mayor. We got a statewide millionaire tax. No, this isn't a shocker. This is one of those things where you're like, yep, I told you so. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right, I'm going to start off reading the AI summary here. And I think Seattle doom loop, housing market now weakest in U.S. Seattle's housing market officially in a tailspin. Oh, it's just going right in the crapper, leading the nation in price drops and exposing the harsh reality of failed liberal governance. As the new Standard & Poor's Case-Shiller Index reveals, Seattle, weakest major market in the entire country, home prices plummeting by 2.5% year over year. Now, that's not exactly plunging, but let's go with it because we all hate Seattle. While the media focuses on national averages, the real story is in the decay of America's progressive cities. Seattle is not alone. You got Denver, you got Dallas, and LA also seeing significant declines. This isn't a random market fluctuation. It's the predictable outcome of policies that punish property owners and cripple local economies. All right, that's fair. Yeah. For the 10th consecutive month, U.S. home values have fallen in real terms. And the crisis in cities like Seattle is showing everyone the disastrous consequences of the left's agenda. Emerald City's real estate disaster, is a stark warning to the rest of the nation. Again, I wouldn't say 2.5% decline, but it is the worst in the nation. So there's that. You got a real estate slowdown. We've had a real estate slowdown since July of 2022. Because you had interest rates here, and then they just went boop, cranked up. And last year we were crushed by tariffs. This year it's interest rates because inflation numbers just can't seem to. Interest rates are a reflection of the overall business cycle. And we're just not in a low interest rate environment right now. You got gasoline prices that have just to the moon, especially if you're in a state like Washington, where you've got the Climate Commitment Act, and a 54-cent a gallon tax because we got to fund all of these just absurd policies. And we're never going to cut back on any of the spending that we committed to. And we had lots and lots and lots of federal funding. But that's a different story. Home prices were falling faster in Seattle than any other major U.S. market in early spring, as the Pacific Northwest city displaced Denver as the nation's weakest housing market. We're number one. Seattle is number one. Oh, so beautiful. In weakest housing market in the country. Does not surprise me at all. You've had the layoffs of the tech bros in droves. My last podcast was Meta is literally firing 699 employees at one of their office buildings just 10 blocks down the road from me here in Bellevue. And, so much of this is they are laying off because during the pandemic, all these tech companies they overhired, right? They overhired. And now they're needing capital to invest in AI because they know with AI, they can fire a lot more people, become more lean and mean. And that's what they're doing. And then in Seattle, you've got housing prices that are just, your median housing price is 8 something. It should be like 3 something. Because when you look at what you get for 8 something in Seattle, you're like, oh my gosh, it's a shoebox. It's wedged in between 14 other homes. And, I can literally hear my neighbors doing everything. They tell you, oh, it's got great sound insulation. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. What's that thump, thump, thump sound? I don't know. More than half of large metros posted year-over-year price declines in March. Seattle led the downturn, 2.5% annual price drop. Denver, the previous month's weakest market, was second with a 2% decline, followed by Tampa. Tampa, that is seeing some, that's a market I've been following because it's like, what's going on there? Now, because each of these markets has a little bit of a different drill, doesn't it? You got Dallas. Dallas is an interesting marketplace. Dallas going hard, Texas going hard on just development in general. So then when you get overdeveloped, I got to pull back a little bit. But Florida, I think that's the same reasoning there, right? Phoenix, same thing. You got over leveraged. LA, well, it's LA, right? You got Spencer Pratt there, who Spencer Pratt has come out and said, well, 40,000 whacked out nut job drug addicts that don't want to live in housing that we have for all of them, they're going to go to Seattle. Literally came out and said that. He says a lot of stuff. I mean, he's a former reality star, right? I never watched any of those shows. I don't think they're all that interesting. It's all scripted, right? And they want you to think, this is just, reality TV. It's like watching the Kardashians, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I used to watch that because as a kid, I was an enormous Bruce Jenner fan. I mean, he was on the back of the Wheaties box, right? He won the decathlon, 10 events. He was best in the world at 10 events, averaged. And then you're watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians and you're like, Bruce is looking a little feminine. What's going on here? This is Bruce. He's Bruce Jenner. He's badass, right? He's just absolute. That javelin, he just threw that toothpick through the air. He competed against all those, roided up commies, and he won. So you got Bruce Jenner, and I watched it for that reason. And then what I find so funny later down the road, all right, so he's transitioning to a woman. Can you imagine being the Kardashian family? One end of it, you got Bruce Jenner, who's Caitlyn Jenner now, and extremely conservative, just extremely conservative. Then on the other side, you got bipolar Kanye West, who was just massively into MAGA for a split second there. So if you're the Kardashians, you're like, what is going on in our world? We got Bruce over there, Caitlyn, we got Kanye over here, and you didn't know whether they're coming or going. Still not enough to make me want to watch, right? I just care about Bruce Jenner. And then we've also got Washington, D.C. Shocker, right? Shocker. Notably, Tampa, previously the nation's most distressed market, that's because they overbuilt, has begun showing signs of stabilization. All right, so it's getting a little better. Nationally, value of single-family homes is measured by repeat transaction, 7% annual gain in March, down from 8% increase the prior month. What we're seeing here in Seattle is we've seen a pickup in market activity. We are seeing homes sit for much longer than we used to. We are seeing homes that are not priced appropriately, that are overpriced, sitting with no activity whatsoever. Nobody going to open houses, nobody showing the homes. And then you've got sellers going, why isn't this sold? Why didn't this sell for multiple offers on the first day? Well, you've had a massive pullback in real estate. And then if you've got a home that you're going to be listing, like in a Seattle market, where the direction of Seattle, you got a socialist for a mayor. That doesn't bode all that well, right? Walking back her comments on Starbucks, walking back her comments on millionaires. Yeah, I didn't really mean all that, but you guys sure reported on it a lot. Yeah, because what you said had a real impact on the city of Seattle. But, Mayor Katie Wilson isn't, she's not able to process that. She doesn't get that. And you know what? That's not a shocker. She's never really had a position where she's had 41 departments underneath her, a budget of $9 billion or whatever it is, thousands and thousands and thousands of employees. So more than half of them, 20 major U.S. housing markets recorded year-over-year price declines in March. But 2.5%, okay, not a massive drop. Not a massive drop. If I were to say that about an increase, I'd be like, a scooch, but not a ton. Up a little bit, not a ton. With consumer inflation accelerating to roughly 3.3% in March, U.S. home values have now fallen in real terms for the 10th consecutive month, underscoring an ongoing erosion of inflation-adjusted housing wealth, meaning housing prices have gone down. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm quite surprised that Seattle is only 2.5%. I wonder what the number is for Bellevue, because all of these markets are now kind of so like sub-market driven, because when you have a socialist like you do in Seattle get elected mayor, then it makes areas like where I am, like Redmond or Kirkland or Issaquah or Bellevue, it makes any of those areas, look pretty welcoming, because they are. You got the commies over in Seattle, saying, hey, boycott Starbucks, boycott REI. We don't have our labor contracts in place. And you're like, what? Doing what? What? Why? March results highlight a stark geographic divergence. Markets in the Midwest and Northeast are sustaining price growth. Going up just a scooch, while those in the Sun Belt and West are in the red. Well, last week I was in Oklahoma City, and I was looking at a bunch of housing, and it is so different there. It makes your head spin. I would assume people coming to Seattle would look at what you get for $1 million in Seattle, and people are like, what in the actual F are people thinking here? And I go down to Oklahoma, and I'm like, okay, that house is like 2.25, and it's decent. That'd be like $1.1 million in my hood, $1.2 million in my hood. It's just, it's so different. It's so different. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is kind of a suburb on the north end of Oklahoma City. And it's pretty cool. There's a new subdivision there, Valencia. Not new, new in, it is old by Oklahoma City standards. Because there are so many new construction developments there. I mean, it's just loaded with new homes. Whereas here in Bellevue or Seattle or Puget Sound area, something that's 10, 12 years is still considered new, because we've got a lot of housing stock in Seattle, built before the Great Depression. And a lot of stuff mid-century. My house that I live in now is 1962. So not exactly 2012 or 2014, which is the age of homes that I'm kind of looking at down in Oklahoma City. But one of the big things is the dirt in Oklahoma City. Red clay moves a lot. So you've got a lot of foundation issues. Even after just a few years, you can have some major movement because that clay-based soil, it just wants to do what it wants to do. Whereas the dirt we have here in the Puget Sound area doesn't do that. It's not like that. The 8.6 percentage point gap separating Chicago from Seattle underscores how localized this housing cycle has become. So each market kind of has its own little sub-market going on. And Seattle specifically, when you are pushing out big business, when you're boycotting Starbucks, when you are pushing out Amazon, when Starbucks goes to Tennessee, when Amazon comes to Bellevue, all of these storylines on top of a national slowdown, because interest rates have gone up and gas has gone through the roof, and that just makes everything expensive. And inflation is rolling at 3.3%, not in that 2 range that, all the economists, that's where we need it to be. That's where we need it to be. In markets where inventory has rebuilt more quickly, new construction continues to offer an increasingly competitive alternative, with recent Realtor.com research showing buyers of newly built homes can save an average of $25,000 in ownership costs over the first decade compared to older existing stock. All right. But in those areas, you've got an oversupply, right? So Seattle, Denver, Tampa, Dallas, Phoenix, Las Vegas, LA, Portland. Wow, Portland's down there at 0.9%. I would have thought Portland would have dropped considerably more. But, Portland doesn't have much of a housing stock. It's a small kind of market. It's a little bit smaller than Seattle market, but its housing stock has always just really lagged. Now, we got Chicago screaming at 6.7% up. What's up with that? New York, Cleveland, Boston, Minneapolis. Look at Minneapolis go with up 1.8%. Miami, Charlotte, San Diego. If it wasn't located in California, San Diego would be a great place to live. It just would. It gets hot there, but yeah, a lot of places get hot. So the rate environment has shifted meaningfully from the brief sub 6% window earlier this year. It's what I talk about all the time, 5.99 up to 6.5, and now we're at 6.6% because, inflation. At the same time, inventory is running above year-ago levels in many markets, and affordability has continued to subtly improve. Affordability better, housing prices dropping as outcomes outpace home price gains. You got a downward market. I love how these economists have to, these authors have to just come up with some really fancy wording for, is it going up or is it going down? Well, it's going down, boys and girls. Reflecting the deeply fragmented nature of the U.S. housing market, supply-constrained markets will likely sustain price growth even as the national picture cools. All right. Okay. All right. Means good markets will do good. And apparently Chicago is in there. I need to look into that more. Like, what's the deal going on there? Right here. So there you go. Seattle, down a scooch. Leading the nation in being down a scooch. That's what we're doing. Do you think that'll drop more? I do. How much? Make sure you're subscribed so you can find out. Thanks so much for being here. Hit that notification bell, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next episode.